I've been wanting to get a paddleboard for a few years now, so I was very excited when Isle offered to send me their Sportsman for evaluation. The Sportsman is what I'd call an SUV class inflatable stand-up paddleboard. Originally designed for fishermen, its 3-foot width, integrated Scotty mount system, and ample bungees and tie downs actually make it a great board for anyone wanting extra stability and cargo capacity when paddling. That said, it's a big boy, with not one, but 3 stabilizing fins in the rear. I wanted to see how detrimental the Sportsman's size and stability might be to its maneuverability, and I couldn't think of a better place to test that than here, Robertson Mill Pond Preserve near Raleigh, North Carolina. It's the only flooded cypress forest in the area, and it's loaded with shallow and tight twists and turns. It's also one of the most beautiful places to paddleboard that I know of.
So this is Robertson Mill Pond Preserve in Wake County, North Carolina, near Raleigh. And you can see the dam that created the mill pond. There was a grain mill here, powered by the water falling off of that dam. And it's the only flooded cypress forest in this area. Everybody asks me, even people that live around here, are there gators in here? No, we don't have gators this far inland in North Carolina. So about the scariest critter in this water is a snake. And I rarely see them to begin with, but I'm not afraid of them anyway. It's not like they're chasing after kayakers and paddle boarders in the first place. This is just absolutely gorgeous. Wonderful place to paddle. No motors of any kind are allowed on here. Only human power, whether it's with a paddle or with pedal power. And so that means that the water is going to be glass smooth the whole time. There's no way for wind to even really get in here and stir things up that much with all of the trees around. About the loudest thing that you hear that's not nature will be the cars on the road that runs parallel to this. This is a trail of buoys, over 70 buoys in total, but that's just a path through this. You are free to paddle anywhere you want in here, and it's actually pretty hard to get lost because it's not that big. But it will take me about 50 minutes to follow the buoy trail. The biggest risk for me is hitting the fin on a submerged log or stump, and that causes the board to stop, but me not to. But this board is so big, I'm generally able to catch myself on the board. I've never gotten thrown off the board into the water. It's also shallow enough to stand most of the places here. I do have the leash on, and I have a life jacket here. It's actually required by law. I always have a life jacket with me on any inflatable because if you lose inflation, you might want to have some source of buoyancy, not just for preserving your life, but to give you some way of pulling your craft, your deflating craft, to some place where you can work on it or get it out of the water. And you won't have to do that while also trying to keep yourself afloat at the same time. One of the things I want to demonstrate with this paddle is how this relatively large board, the Sportsman, is basically an SUV class of paddleboard, 11.5 feet long, 3 feet wide, 6 inches thick, yet it's going to be something that I can maneuver on this trail with good paddle technique and patience. It'll still get around. I'm not going to get stuck here because of its size. That was one of the things that surprised me most about this, is how maneuverable this is compared to inflatable kayaks. But that has to do with how flat the bottom is. It allows the board to pivot on the fins in the back. And if you think about, that's what you're doing when you're turning it. you're not turning it in the middle of the board, you're pivoting off of the fins in the back. It really will help you know how to put the paddle in the water and how to push to get the turn that you want. Also the timing. You want that nose to get past an obstacle first, and then you start to swing it over because the pivoting is going to happen in the back. Just like that. So easy to gently maneuver. Look at that. Right between the leaves. I didn't need to duck. This is my first paddleboard ever. And I'm pretty athletic, so my balance was already pretty decent. I didn't have any problem though adapting to standing on this. I wish I had that footage from that first time I was on here though, because it showed that, yeah, the first half hour or so I was on this, I was less sure, and so my base was really wide. So I was standing a bit like this the whole time. But as I get more comfortable, especially getting more comfortable with it rocking but not dumping me, getting comfortable with the paddleboard stopping and me not falling all the way off, I got to where I'm very comfortable with a natural standing stance with my feet actually shoulder width apart. And if you can do that, it's definitely less tiring on your legs. This is the start of the tighter section, so it takes a lot more maneuvering. And I can feel this catching every now and then on things in the bottom. I don't think it's going to be too long. Oop, there's the other boy. Look at that. Look at that turning. Look at that maneuverability. Even though it's a big board, it pivots nicely. Oh, it's so beautiful back here. A lot of people look at the water and think it's gross, but it's really just tannic. It's not dirt, it's not pollution. It's the fact that there are so many leaves on the bottom decomposing and soaking, and it's just like tea. It's the tannins that stain the water brown. I love standing up, being able to see farther through the trees, because the lower you are, the thicker things are. I love being from this perspective to see the things in the water that I'm trying to avoid, like pokey branches. The material on this stand-up paddleboard is tough enough for me to run in and just about anything that I'm gonna find in these waters that has been soaking for a long time. And I have, with no visible damage, but I still want to avoid it when I can, especially since that upsets the balance of the board and me on top. We're farther away from the road, so the traffic noise has calmed significantly. And now I'm hearing insects and frogs and crows primarily right now. And the sound of my paddle in the water. That's another thing about paddleboarding that I didn't expect, is that you can paddle very quietly compared to a kayak. You can get that paddle in very silently, and part of the reason is the angle. Oh, there we go. All right, I'm glad we caught that. This is just a matter of finding a way around it. Get that tail unhooked. Just like that, there we go. But it's a combination of being able to stab the water with the blade of the paddle silently, and then you have a much longer available stroke to you. You You don't always use it all, but in many different directions, you can keep it silently in the water and get a turn so you don't have to get the blade in the water multiple times, which is going to be noisier. So as quiet as kayaks and canoes can be, paddleboards are even quieter, and I really like that. Paddleboarding through a place like this is very meditative.
I've always seen my running as meditation in motion, and now I can add paddleboarding to that concept. The act of balancing on the board, gently paddling in the water, navigating the tight gaps through the trees and stumps eases my mind and gives me a break from thinking about the various sources of stress in my life. Sadly, many paddleboarders won't even come out to this mill pond because of the many low branches hanging over the water. The Sportsman's stability makes squatting and kneeling whenever needed a breeze. Though the wobbling of my camera's mount might suggest otherwise, I never felt the board move in any unsettling way underneath me. Add to that the thick layer of EVA foam on top, which provides a very comfortable surface for my knees to support me on the board. Counterintuitively, the Sportsman's large size means that it's able to navigate slightly shallower water without dragging its fin than smaller boards due to its increased buoyancy. However, hitting a stump is inevitable in this cypress forest tannic water. This is where the extra stability of the big board helps. Even as I stumble forward, the Sportsman doesn't get tippy like a skinnier board might, helping me stay on the board to unstick the fin. One technique I use to do that is walk forward on the board to lift the fin even higher while also reducing the pressure on it. That helps it to skip over limbs and logs instead of getting hung up. 11.5 feet is on the long side for a single person paddlecraft, but it's definitely not too long for me to get around this water trail. There's no question that the shorter craft is easier to navigate through some of the tighter sections, but the Sportsman's length gives you stability without costing you the ability to enjoy paddling through flooded forests like this one. More than anything, that's what I wanted to show you in this video. The Sportsman is a paddleboard that gives you options. You can fish from it, but you can also use its size to haul other stuff with you. And you can still enjoy a simple paddle without using any of that cargo capacity anywhere you'd likely take any other paddleboard. If you wanted to try one out for yourself, ISLE offers a 60-day ride it and love it guarantee. I can't imagine to get many paddleboards back through this program of any kind, but it's a great way to see if any particular board they make will meet your paddling needs. If you want to get a Sportsman or any ISLE product for yourself, please start your purchase with the link in the video description. It supports the channel when you do. Be sure to subscribe for more paddleboarding videos. I really appreciate you watching the Tech of Tech, and I hope to see you next time.